Aren't we glad we're living in this free country? Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, Mathew Dickerson.
Now, you know what I'm going to say, don't you, Richard? The solution to all the problems you just talked about then is don't drive a car that uses petrol.
Oh, yeah. Just get a car, order a Lamborghini or a Porsche, put it on a car carrier, send it into the Atlantic and have the ship catch fire, and they can't rescue the lithium battery burning cars.
No, that's right. That is a problem. But
What do you mean it is a problem? There's $400 million worth of cars floating around in the middle of the Atlantic. What do you mean it is a problem? Because it's a problem. Is yours on board there?
No, mine's sitting out the front of your studio.
Is it really? Okay. Have you got your Hyundai? Have you picked that up?
Yeah, I picked it up. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, I don't worry about petrol prices. I don't worry about are we going to see price gouging.
Right, now, listen, I've got to ask you this. As soon as I talked to you about this the other day and you said it was 77 grand, are we paying for it?
No, I paid for that.
So you put it out of your own pocket?
So I paid $77,000 because that price is above the allowance for a mayoral vehicle, but I thought it was important enough to have that vehicle, and basically I made a decision from a personal perspective to say, well, I'll go outside the mayoral process because the mayoral allowance has got a maximum of $60,000 for a mayoral vehicle. So
couldn't you buy an EV for?
Yeah, you can. But I suppose that's the car I'm going to be driving all the time, and so I made a personal decision that I would drive that car rather than drive one under the limit. But again, I suppose the message here is I don't want to be about the price. Keep in mind that running costs of that are next to nothing because electricity is so cheap. You can charge it for free at so many different places. So even though the purchase price, and that's where we've got to update our policy for our staff. Our staff need to be able to choose electric cars, which will be dearer than the petrol cars they get, but they'll be cheaper for council overall. And that's the decision I made. Because that policy is in place basically around petrol vehicles. So anyway, but you can buy EVs at the moment in Australia for just over 40 grand.
What brand's that?
You can get an MG for just over 40, and
it's not a sports car.
No, it's not a SUV type car. It's not the old MG that you would remember.
That I had.
That you had.
Yeah.
That's right. But there's also BYD, which should be in Australia.
What is it?
BYD.
What's BYD?
It stands for Build Your Dreams, and they'll be under 40.
A put together car?
No. It's a Chinese brand. They just came up with the name BYD for whatever reason.
Apparently it comes with its own construction crew in the boot. 7 Chinese jump out of the boot and put it together in 3 days. So
not at all. No. It comes fully completed.
Pretty important meeting last night, council meeting, Mayor. One of these issues that I know, and I spoke with those who were associated with it, Lockie Cusack, who's the director of the licensee in charge of Platinum Property Groups, a development going on in Macleay Street, social housing, and it seems that some of the neighbours didn't like it. It was put before council last night. What happened?
Correct, yep. So we had a couple of people speaking in public forum, which was great. They came along, a couple of people against, a couple of people for, and in the end, there was a bit of debate around council, so there were a few different views put forward. In the end, it was passed. And I think the main reason, I can't speak on behalf of councillors, their thought process, but I think the main reason it went through despite some of the objections was that we have a huge problem in Dubbo with housing and affordable housing. So an 18-room boarding house, I think councillors thought this is the sort of development that we're going to have to look at in Dubbo to solve our housing crisis.
How are we going to solve the stigma?
The only way we'll solve the stigma is by it going up and operating well. And we did have speakers last night who spoke about the fact that it will be managed. There'll be people who will be there, including council, to make sure that people adhere to the rules. And that's really just something for monitoring from the neighbours. And again, neighbours aren't necessarily happy about it. They objected to it, and I understand that.
What were their objections?
Oh, they had a number of objections.
Riffraff next door. Not in my street. Not having drunks next to me. That's the bottom line of the bigotry, Matthew. That's the reality.
Yeah, I don't think any of the objectors said exactly that. The objectors were concerned about lack of privacy, maybe too many people living there. Even some objectors were concerned about the affordability for the people, because the starting price was about $270 per week for a room, which is cheaper than a house, for example, but $270 a week. The point was made by one of the objectors that that's still above the 30%, which is set as the price, 30% of your median wage set as the price for affordable housing. So it's 39% of your median wage in Dubbo. So there were some issues there around that affordability. But again, I think part of the issue is that people grow up in Dubbo expecting to have a house next door with a family. And if you've got 18 rooms next door, it's different. And that's something we're going to have to come to grips with. The bottom line is that we have more people that want to live in Dubbo, and we don't have the housing.
The thing that's part one. So we've got to stretch out land. Are you thinking of land?
I'm thinking there's a whole range of things. New developments. So we've got a number of developers in Dubbo, including council.
There, Matt. What about the block of land that was sold recently, the nursery on the entrance of town?
Yep.
All right, which is over the road from the RAF base, right?
Correct.
That's vacant now.
Yeah.
That is meant to be earmarked for affordable housing, isn't it?
That's exactly right. There will be affordable housing. That's one that will go up there. So there's a range of ones that I think we'll see across the city, including the RAF base that you mentioned there. There'll be some medium density housing that'll go into there. So it's a range of solutions. It's more land availability. Council will have more land come on. Other developers will have more land come on. But even those block sizes, I think people are getting to the point where you don't need 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 square metres for your block.
True.
Maybe 600, 800, 900 metres is enough. So that's a bit different for people that have grown up in the city. And then maybe some of those places that have got those larger blocks may end up putting a smaller dual occupancy on that same block. So we had that issue with South Dubbo that you may well remember, Richard, many years ago.
I've still got a target on my back, don't you worry about that.
But I think what will happen is that sort of development is possible in Dubbo in a lot of blocks at the moment. So,
Okay, Dubbo Regional Council wishes to advise all recreational fishers about the buoys. What's happened?
nothing yet. I know you keep talking about the buoys, but the flow of water is still too strong.
It's important.
It is very important, but the flow of water is still important. So for someone to repair those broken buoys, then at the moment we just need that water flow to slow down, which we can't ask the dam to stop putting out water just so we can fix those, unfortunately.
Now, what's the construction hours being extended?
So this is in relation to that housing crisis we have. Builders are saying literally there are not enough hours in the day. So normally there are construction restrictions on weekends. So what we're saying is that we're opening up till the end of March, opening up those construction hours on weekends. And I think from memory it was 9 till 5 on Saturdays. You can tell me you've got it in front of you there, and 10 till 4 on Sundays.
So they're going to wake me up with banging and hammering now.
Yeah, they're going to be able to do that on weekends. Now,
Well,
there's still some restrictions on Sundays with some demolition work, but essentially the work that you wouldn't expect to hear on weekends, we're asking residents to be a little bit kinder to those builders. They're allowed to do it on weekends until the end of March.
Okay. So if you put in a protest about this affordable housing going up in Macleay Street, which will be quite lovely, start thinking about the fact that you're going to be waking up with saws and hammers and yelling and swearing of tradies next door to you.
Well, these are modern tradies. They don't yell and swear anymore, Richard. They just get on and do their job.
Mathew Dickerson, who is the Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Richard.
Nice weekend. Okay. It's 8 o'clock.